Are there any bill introductions? Got some more members coming in here. Okay, seeing no bill introductions. Oh, I'm sorry. I have one bill introduction. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Revisers 3078, which is an act concerning elections relating to actions challenging the constitutionality of state laws governing elections should be only brought in the District Court of Shawnee County.
Okay, are there any questions on this bill? Are there any objections to requesting introduction? Okay, seeing no objections, it was
Shawnee County. Shawnee, sorry.
Seeing no objections, the bill will be introduced. All right, committee, our next order of business is action on bills previously heard, and I would like to discuss House Bill 2452. The chair would entertain a motion on this bill. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the committee accepts or passes on House Bill 2452 favorably for passage.
Okay, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I've second that.
Okay, I've got a second from Representative James. Okay, is there any discussion on this bill? I would like to take chair's prerogative and begin the discussion by introducing an amendment. Okay, so committee, while he's handing this amendment out, what this amendment does is it addresses two issues. First, Mr. Pifo had a concern that the language was not clear on who serves a 3-year term, so we have clarified that on the first page. But the bigger thing this does is it addresses another concern. I think Representative Bergkamp raised this question with the reviser before we even got into testimony, that current Kansas statute says you can only appear on a ballot once. And we have folks here in our chamber who serve on school boards, serve in city commissions, and also serve here in the House. And they would not be able to run for re-election under that current law. So what this amendment does is it carves out exceptions for those offices where where there's not a conflict to serve in a local office and to serve in a state office. And so that's what this amendment does. So are there, I move my amendment. Can I get a second for the amendment? I've got a second from the Vice Chairman. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing no discussion on the amendment, I will close on my motion to amend. All those in favor of amending signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Is there any discussion? Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to table HB 2452 until we have an updated fiscal note, as the fiscal notes are not updated after amendments.
Okay, so I've got a motion to table from Representative Simmons, and I've got a second from the ranking minority member. Is there any discussion on this motion? Mr. Ranking Minority Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague for making the sub-motion. I will state not only in addition to not an update on fiscal notes for the amendment, I'm still looking at the fiscal note that was provided, and it states, due to expedited turnaround for hearing the bill, the agency is unable to complete a fiscal note for the bill prior to hearing. I just want to keep in mind that we are spending other people's money, specifically the taxpayers, and we do not know how much this is going to cost. So I support the table, and I encourage everybody else to slow this down so we get more information.
Okay, so before I recognize anybody else for discussion, first of all, the state does not pay for elections. The counties pay for the elections, and I think we heard multiple people testify that the net effect of having half as many elections is that elections will cost less in each county, even if you did have to lengthen the ballot, even if you did have to open additional polling places. I actually, the representative from the Clerks Association admitted as much. Is there any other comment? Mr. Ranking Minority Member, and then Representative Meyer.
And thank you for that, Mr. Chair, and the clarification on that. I would ask, do we know how much it's going to cost the taxpayers in the county area for this law? Because the last time I checked, our constituents were asking for us to decrease their taxes, specifically property tax, and this will have an effect on that. So it seems like it's an unfunded mandate that we're asking them without knowing what the cost is. So my motion still continues.
And again, I would say that even the Clerks Association representative admitted that having half as many elections would cost less money, maybe not half as much. But Representative Meyer and then Representative Simmons. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And respectfully, I think I would have to disagree with my interpretation of his statements that day. It sounded more like they weren't entirely convinced that that would be the case and that they were seeking more information about the cost to the counties. He, in my recollection, stated something along the lines that at this time they couldn't see that it would cost them money, but they weren't sure. And granted, we weren't provided a fiscal note, and obviously that's going to be difficult to do so with all the multiple counties in the state. But I think it's very important that we consider that this will be costing our counties, or could potentially cost our counties quite a bit more. We just don't know what that is or what it could be, which is why I support the motion to table. Thank you.
Yeah, Representative Simmons and then Representative Williams. Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of why I suggest this motion is because we come here and we tell people that we're going to be diligent. We had 43 Kansans provide opponent testimony. Also, with all due respect to our previous conferee, his opinion is certainly not a formal fiscal note from the Kansas division of the budget, and I don't believe he'd want to bear the burden of that either. So please support this motion so that we can have an educated vote with an articulated and accurate fiscal note. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to throw into the discussion that in 2023, there was a legislative post-audit, and that audit showed that 7 out of 10 audits were significantly inaccurate. And as much as we do appreciate fiscal notes, we do utilize them, we generally, in our bodies, calculate correctly based on additional evidence. And so I would just place that into the order of discussion.
Okay, Representative Simmons for the third time.
Thank you. Representative Williams is correct, and the reason that they were inaccurate is because amendments were put on, and then the fiscal note was not re-requested, which we were also informed you have to make a specific request as a legislator to get an updated fiscal note on a bill after it's been amended. So she's correct, but that was only half of the context.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this motion? Representative Bronk.
Thank you. I just also would suggest that in addition to the fiscal issue, that there is also a human capital issue. So we're asking a lot of our poll workers to be there for quite some time, long hours of the day, and it's getting more difficult to find them. And so having these elections on one day would save some of those people from doing this twice. And so that saves on the human capital. A lot of these people are elderly. A friend of mine does this. He's 80. He says, "Oh, Steve, I don't think I can do this anymore." I say, yeah, you can. And so we would only have to approach him once instead of twice. So I'd also just make that as a point.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ranking Minority Member, for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Technically, it's the third time because I love the mic. But I will say this here is no way, or by tabling it, is not stating that you can't have action on it. I would just ask that we have all the information in order for us to justify the vote before we recommend to the General House that we should work this as a general chamber. This is the obligation we have as a committee on this. And I don't understand why we have to rush it. We just heard it, and we had so much discussion last time that we went over 30 minutes with the questions we have. So there's obviously still a need to learn more. I just would ask that this is just being a good statesman to just pause and get more information and take in the human capital, find out how much this is going to cost. I think those are good points. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Representative Meyer. Second time on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to echo the concerns of my ranking and just state again, I left here with so many questions afterwards, and I still have some unanswered, including the fiscal note, but so much more. I'd still like an opportunity to completely dive into the testimony, to reach out to those individuals who provided testimony on both sides, to get some more information about this before moving forward. So again, I would really recommend highly that we are given the opportunity to do so and do some more research on our own before we move this to the body. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, committee, a reminder, a vote of aye would table this bill. A vote of nay would put us back on the bill to move forward to a vote. All those in favor of tabling House Bill 2452 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay? No. Okay, the noes appear to have it, but not at the same pitch. So did you want your vote recorded? Representative Simmons, Representative Mosley, Ranking Minority Member, and Representative Meyer would like their no vote recorded. We are back on the bill. Is there any more discussion? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, your aye vote. I apologize. Your vote to table. I apologize. Thank you. You got it. My committee assistant excels at translating what I say into what makes sense. So if you've read her minutes. All right. Is there any other discussion on the bill? Representative Hillig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I visited with several people in my district. Though it would complicate the ballot issue, they think they can handle that. There was one question that was raised, and I would like to ask you or the reviser of it. Would this violate home rule for any of the municipalities?
Do you want to take a shot at that, Mr. Reviser?
The question is, does changing the date of the election violate home rule?
Yes, as for they're already in statute down there of odd years.
The short answer is no. The county home rule statute says that they shall be subject to election laws of the state of Kansas. Municipalities, cities, home rule is constitutional. I think this bill does not necessarily make the law uniform, but there is a law that says that all elections of municipalities have to be conducted by the county election official, so I don't think it has an impact on home rule as such. There's maybe a home rule amendment dealing with filing fee or something like that, but for the most part, I don't think it's going to affect home rule.
Appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the bill? Okay, seeing no further discussion, Mr. Vice Chairman, would you like to renew your motion as amended?
Yes. I move that we pass House Bill 2452 as amended positively to the House.
Okay, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of passing House Bill 2452 favorably for passage signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay? No. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. All right, thank you. Representative Meyer, would you like your vote recorded? Okay, Representative Meyer, Representative Simmons, Ranking Minority Member, Representative Mosley would like their no votes recorded. All right, thank you for that, committee. We'll now move on to the next order of business, which is a hearing on House Bill 2451. Mr. Reviser, could you remind us what that's about?
Mike Heim with the Reviser Statutes Office. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill amends a statute 254169 a that currently provides that no officer or employee of the state of Kansas or any municipality shall use or authorize any public funds, public machinery, equipment, supplies, etc., to expressly advocate for the nomination or election or defeat of a clearly identified candidate. And what this does is adds to that prohibition that they cannot promote, oppose the adoption or repeal of any provision of the Constitution of the state of Kansas or any ballot question submitted to the qualified electors of the state or political subdivision. On page 2, there is further clarification: an officer and employee of a state or municipality may respond to inquiries regarding the adoption or repeal of any provision of the Constitution or ballot question in a neutral manner, publish neutral information to educate, and so on. It shall be a violation of this section for an officer and employee to conduct or authorize direct mass communications regarding the ballot question, such as mailers, flyers, physical signage, and statements posted on social media. Current law provides it's a Class C misdemeanor, which is 30 days or $500 fine. So anyway, if you got questions, I'll try and answer them. I forgot my hearing aid today, so speak up.
All right. Does anybody have loud questions for the revisor? Representative Berquist.
I can spare one hearing aid. I can spare one.
I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions or statements? All right, thank you, Mr. Revisor. All right, we will open proponent testimony on House Bill 2451, and the first conferee is Senator Doug Shane. Welcome to the committee, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Proctor and the committee. It's good to be with all of you today, and I know many of you, but haven't had the opportunity to meet some of you. Really happy to come and provide proponent testimony for House Bill 2451. As it just so happens, you could say I have a sister version of this bill in the Senate, albeit completely unplanned. And I think that that really highlights the fact that the issues that we're seeking to address through this legislation was not a singular event, but it appears that it could be a pattern that's happening across the state. One important thing that I want to point out about 2451 is that it puts into law and codifies into law something that most Kansans believe to already be true, that public officials cannot use taxpayer resources to advocate for things that are on the ballot. What caused me to look at this statute in 2025 was because we had a local ballot question in my hometown of Lewisburg related for our local school district, asking the taxpayers permission for the school district to enter into a lease purchase agreement. And I was pretty appalled by what I saw as direct advocacy coming out of the school district. And then examples of this included distribution of yard signs, it included printing of materials, extra credit assignments being given to students in exchange for advocacy and telling their parents to vote yes. And this is just a list of just a few of the things that we saw happening in Lewisburg, and community members were pretty aghast that the power and the influence of the school district would be used in that form and fashion, also creating a coercive environment within the school district itself, whether you're a student or a staff member. So this bill simply seeks to address that. Importantly, existing law also would not prohibit any municipality, county, school district from directly advocating for or against a constitutional amendment. And as we know, we have some important constitutional amendments coming up this year. And if there's a willingness to abuse this gap in statute on simple ballot questions, I would be fearful that there would be a willingness to abuse public trust when it comes to really important questions like constitutional amendments. So with that, I really encourage you to work this bill, to vote yes. And as a final point, one thing that I'll add, many of these questions show up in cities of the second and the third class, as well as for school districts, in which election disclosure requirements and ethics disclosure requirements exist but are seldom enforced. And I know that in our local community, although there was a fair amount of advocacy, there was not a single ethics disclosure made to our local county clerk on the issue. And so we do have some issues of also not having public disclosure when those taxpayer funds are potentially expended. So with that, I'll be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you, committee.
So committee, I'm generally going to wait until all the proponents have testified, but since Senator Shannon sure has other things to attend to, I'm going to go ahead and let anybody ask any questions they have for him now. And I see Representative Mosley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've already forgotten your name. What is your name again?
Senator Shane.
Nice to meet you, Senator. So first, I'm sorry that you had to live in fear of advocacy. I'm sorry that that happened to you. You mentioned that you're basically speaking for a whole community. Did you conduct any like surveys? Was this kind of like in passing? Like what kind of work did you do in order to like really get the sense of the whole community?
Yeah, so to clarify, I'm not speaking on behalf of the community. There are people within the community who were aghast by what happened. And so certainly there were folks that were perfectly okay with what happened out of the school district, and there were those that were opposed. Generally speaking, as I speak to constituents across Senate District 37, there's a general understanding, or there is an expectation that advocacy like this would generally be prohibited. So certainly most people are surprised by this kind of advocacy.
When you say you talk to the community, give me like a rough estimate how many people you've spoken to. I don't know how big your community is, but how many people did you speak to roughly?
Yeah, I mean, so it's 77,000 Kansans about in a Senate district. But I would say I've spoken to several dozen people on this issue.
Several dozen, okay, thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator, great to have you. I love your bill, and I think it is a concern for many Kansans that are dealing with property tax increases. My question is actually based on something Texas does. When they have bond issues in Texas and it goes on the ballot, they actually have to have a disclaimer at the top of the proposition that says this will raise your property taxes. So my question is about direct advocacy. There is a way for districts or organizations or anyone to promote a particular opinion without saying maybe 9 key words, such as vote for, and yet still show that they are, in favor of the proposition. So my question to you would be, what would be your thought about a potential amendment that would require some type of reporting of how your property tax impact will change if this, or what would happen if it did not pass? Would the mill levy go away, go down? Any type of just disclosure of a taxation if they chose to have any type of communication paid for by the school?
I think if it's related to, if that's bond issues, lease purchase agreements, any kind of tax question, I think that we could certainly look to model after other states and see maybe what's been effective and not been effective. And I would encourage this committee to go ahead and explore that. When it comes to language around advocacy, and maybe I'd say sometimes flirting with advocacy. As an example, the materials that were put out in USD 416 said a home run for our kids, right? And so it didn't say vote yes, but one could argue that's an advocating statement, right? And so we also have to consider we commonly flirt with, does advocate mean you have to directly say vote yes, or does it mean using some sort of other language? And I think that's something that we can discuss collectively as a body.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, because I think generally many voters don't fully understand how it is going to impact negatively or positively your property tax. Thank you.
So we've got a couple people with questions, so I'm going to take chair's prerogative here. Anticipating what I might hear later when we get to opponent testimony, would this bill in any way prevent an employee of the school on their own time with their own money from advocating in support of or against a ballot question?
No.
Okay, thank you. Representative Meyer and then Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Senator Shane. I don't think we've had the opportunity to meet, but I appreciate you coming by and sharing your stories. I was pretty shocked when you mentioned, though, that teachers in your district were offering extra credit if their parents would vote for a certain issue. Could you explain that a little more? Because that seems more like a personnel issue to me, which is not something we should be handling. And I'm not exactly sure how they would intend to prove that either. So could you share that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So there was classroom time spent for producing advocacy videos and advocacy materials. There was extra credit assignments and classroom time that were used. I would argue that those were violations of district policy, although the school board certainly did not seek to enforce that policy at that time. Having law that reinforces something that might already be in policy is not necessarily a bad thing in that case. Now, proving that somebody voted yes, of course, you could never necessarily prove that somebody voted yes. Really, what the ask was is go home and tell your parents to vote yes, right? And if you can demonstrate that you did that, then there'll be some credit that's given to that. So it wasn't necessarily tied to the vote. It was for trying to get parents to vote yes.
Okay, just to follow up though, because this is very difficult for me to understand, and it sounds like it probably came from an angry parent, is my guess, or something like that, a constituent of yours. So what I would think, or at least in my school district, if something of that nature occurred and it wasn't student directed or student led, for instance. So like, you know, I could understand maybe students saying, hey, we really care about this issue and we would like to make a video about it, or we'd like to do a project on it. That would make sense to me. It wouldn't necessarily be professor or instructor led, which is why what I'm trying to get at. It seems really unlikely that it would have been something very specifically done by a teacher. And I wish that I had more information about this, because that alone is shocking. And it sounds like the school district didn't do anything, which, you know, to me says maybe the teacher wasn't the one responsible for it, but I'm just taking guesses here. I would love to see that if you could ever show us. Thank you.
Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, Senator Shane. I too have not had a chance to meet you. Welcome to the House Elections Committee. I have two questions for you. Page 2, line 3, it says, discusses neutrality. To your point about language, there's no definition for neutrality or neutral in the bill. Do you have an offering?
I think this is something that we'll have to think about, given kind of my comments earlier of really what does that mean to be neutral. At the end of the day, there's going to be some amount of interpretation and discretion that's put in that. I don't know that there's any way to avoid that, but certainly the point is well taken. Neutrality, especially when it comes to school bond issues, has kind of been the presumed case, like that school districts can educate but not advocate, right? And again, those lines have probably been flirted with. Now, what does that look from an enforcement mechanism? Is there a clearer way to define that? I think collectively we can put our heads together and think about what that might look like.
Well, I think we should probably figure that out before we pass this out of committee. Additionally, nothing in the bill indicates who decides neutrality beyond a definition, if it would be the local DA or the AG if someone were to file a complaint and say, we believe this violates a policy of neutrality. Nowhere in the bill does it say what the process would be for that, and I believe that should also be outlined. I have a second question. Who carries the burden here to determine if something took place on school time or on personal time? And what does that investigative process look like?
So ultimately, investigations like this would ultimately fall to one of two places. It would fall to the local county attorney or district attorney, or it would fall to the attorney general. And they would have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that advocacy occurred during school time or during workplace time if it's a municipality. And so the standard investigatory procedures would apply as with any law enforcement investigation.
Could they really, though, if we don't have, for example, an office that they would go through in the bill?
Could you restate your question for me?
Well, I'm just tying it back to my first question, that both with a prosecution of someone violating a neutrality policy and a subsequent investigation into when that advocacy, alleged advocacy took place, there is no investigative body identified in this legislation for this cause or the definition.
I would certainly invite the reviser's comment, but presumptively that authority has already been given to the county attorneys and to the attorney general to enforce election law.
Both or just one? Should be specified.
The presumption is that, first of all, you'd have to be charged with a crime, and the charging would be through the county or district attorney, and then they would have to prove that the elements of the statute have been met and been violated. So I think that answers the question.
We've got other conferees, so.
Yes, sir. I cannot say enough. I think it's incredibly irresponsible to pass this legislation out without a very clear definition of neutral and
You
neutrality.
have a question, Representative? We're questioning conferees right now. We'll discuss the bill when we go to pass it.
Yes, he has the equivalent bill, and I'm curious if you have put any thought. I understand you don't have anything written in your bill. But you have nothing to offer to define neutral?
So neutrality is not addressed in my version of the bill. That is in the House's version of the bill. And so I'm happy to put my mind to it to help put some more language around that, but that is not in the Senate version of this bill.
We should consider that too. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Shane, thank you very much for coming. I am curious, you outlined what the district did, the district as far as these various campaign mechanisms. Well, was there a private committee also advocating like a regular, vote yes on the bond issue? Or was it?
Yes, I can't remember exactly what name they put on it, but there was a community-based organization that, of course, there's a lot of ties to the district, which is understandable. But yes, there was a separate organization, but again, there was no, filings or disclosures to really identify who they were.
So there clearly was a way for people who favor the bond issue or the, lease purchase agreement to express their advocacy in a more traditional way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like everybody else.
And they did, and we certainly encourage that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if I could ask, what was the final result? Did the thing pass? Did it fail?
It did end up passing.
Really? Okay, interesting. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for Senator Shane? Because I'd like to give the other conferees. Okay, Representative Mosley, and after that, I'm going to move to the next.
I'll be ready to move on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been very informative on the things that you've thought through and the things you haven't fully thought through. When you were speaking with individuals who were very up in arms, are these individuals who are actually in the classroom, they had firsthand knowledge, or did they hear this secondhand? And also, do you have children in this school system, or do you have children in private schools?
So where my children attend school is not a prerequisite.
Private school, but yeah.
Mattering on this, my kids are homeschooled, which we probably homeschool, and that's fine. These reports came to me directly from students, teachers, and school board members.
And did you actually do an investigation, or did you go to the school board directly and say that this was a problem and try to solve it at the lowest level, or did you just go straight to the legislature and try to?
There were school board
big
members who
government?
I've communicated with about
Okay,
this.
thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next conferee because I'm sure they have things to say too. Thank you very much, Senator Shane. Okay, our next conferee is Miss Allison Reed. Welcome to the committee, ma'am.
Is that on? Good, okay, all right. Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that tech worked. I'm Allison Reed. Thank you, Chairman Proctor, Vice Chair Wagoner, all the members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and speak in support of HB 2451. I am part of Stop the Bond Hutchison. Last year, USD 308 had a school bond on the ballot with over $200 million in property tax increases. And while I was always personally against this tax increase, as the campaign went on, it became more about all the taxpayer money the district was spending to benefit the Vote Yes campaign and to influence the school bond election in their favor. And when we started coming together and to mount an opposition against the school bond, the very first thing that I did is I went and I looked at all the information that the district had put out, and I looked at all the information that the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids campaign had put out, and it looked exactly the same. It was exactly the same graphics, exactly the same mailer, exactly the same videos. Everything was the same. And to me, that was very concerning as a taxpayer because somebody funds this. And so is the campaign buying stuff for the district? Is the district buying stuff for the campaign? And so that kind of started our kind of investigation into who was paying for what, where was this money coming from. So the first thing is this 8-page glossy, beautiful mailer that was sent out to the district. And you can read the top of it, Building Community for Stronger Futures. It doesn't necessarily say yes, but it certainly gives you an idea of where the person that produced this is coming from. And I did bring these. If the committee wants me to pass them around, they're certainly welcome to look at them. And I will be honest with you, when I finished reading this, I looked for the paid for by on it. I looked and I said, okay, who's funding this? Oh, the district is funding this. I thought that was very interesting. And so I did reach out to the school district concerning this mailer. It took multiple emails for me to get a response from the district about it. Here they're telling me that it's informational. I do marketing for a nonprofit. When I send out informational, it's all about services I provide. How many clients are we seeing? How much money did we raise? What are our key components for the next fiscal year? If I put out something like this, it's more to encourage donors to get on board with what we're doing as a nonprofit. So then next, okay, so then here you see the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids, which is the campaign component of the bond issue, and exactly the same as what the district sent out, paid for by the taxpayers. Again, claimed informational. So the next were the videos, and again, multiple videos in 2 languages used by both the district and the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids. And you can see some of the transcript from the video there. These are just some of the words that I pulled out from it. We will need a new building to do that. To provide the best for our children. I think we need to capitalize on that, to make things more efficient. I think that would be best. Why settle when we can soar? Again, it certainly advocates for a position without saying vote yes. So then next came a news article from a local columnist who had visited with a superintendent about the district purchasing yard signs for the campaign. And as you see there very clearly on the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids campaign social media page is the taxpayer-funded yard signs. Below the graphic, vote November 4th. And if you read in the caption above, give us a donation of $10. So literally the taxpayers bought signs that the Vote Yes campaign used to raise money. So as the campaign went on, okay, let me show you these real quick. So here, the school district used those campaign signs on school property. This is just one of many pictures I have. This is at HMS 8, but there were multiple locations, school buildings, school property where these signs were placed. So as the campaign continued, I felt like Stop the Bond became an IG's hotline for parents and staff very concerned about things that they were seeing the district doing to advocate for the passage of the school bond. And so I'm going to go through some of these right now. So here is the Vote Yes. Clearly, signs identified as the Vote Yes signs. You can see on their social media page. These are in a hallway of a school building. Teachers would send these home with students. Students were instructed to put these signs in their yard. This is outside Ferris Elementary School during their parent-teacher conferences. Again, signs, you might have to enlarge the second picture on your device, but you can clearly see the signs were left in the front for parents to take home with them. And parents that attended a conference were told that part of the conference, they were given a sheet about the bond and how each building would benefit from the bond. And so part of a taxpayer-funded function, parent-teacher conferences, was to push the benefits of the bond in their building. Complaints from USD 308 staff that teachers were wearing these buttons during the school day. And as you can see, the logo is very similar. The I Support Hutch Kids is what was worn by district teachers. Vote Yes for Hutch Kids used almost the exact same logo, just changed the words a little, and that's their social media page right there. And then we were talking a little bit about employees getting involved. So canvassing for the Vote Yes campaign was organized and coordinated by a current employee of USD 308. Stacy Goss is their Director of Communications. You can see her down there in the corner. And we still have questions of if Stacy was compensated by the district with taxpayer money for the work that she was doing on behalf of the Vote Yes campaign. These are the Facebook ads that were put out by the district during the bond campaign. Again, paid for by the taxpayers. You can click that little learn more and go right to information about the school bond. This was the PTO. So we had some concerned members of the PTO forward us this email. The district, the PTO, and the Vote Yes committee got together and decided that they would do some electioneering the week of the bond vote on school property. And we had people at every school. So as you can clearly see there, HMS 8 on Monday, November 3rd, the vote was the next day. You can clearly see students outside holding signs identified by the Vote Yes campaign as their signs advocating for the passage of that. And there is outside of Morgan Elementary School, again, campaign signs clearly identified by the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids as their signs. There's also additional signs there that say support students, support the bond, and invest in my future, Vote Yes. Also, Vote Yes shirts were worn. And again, this is just a small sampling of the pictures and the information that we got. And then finally, it's assumed that taxpayers also funded these text messages that went out to registered voters to remind them that the school bond was on the ballot. So a lot of concern about how much taxpayer money was spent. I know one of the questions for the prior person was, did we try to go to the school board and get some of this taken care of prior to? I did share all of this information with the school district at one of their board meetings. They have claimed that they only paid for yard signs, they only paid for mailers, they only paid for the chamber to send out those mailers as well. I did want to insert a clip here for all of you to hear the district in their own words speaking about what taxpayer money was used to fund this campaign. Unfortunately, the district decided to take that video down. I'm not sure why. The other thing that's very concerning to me as the treasurer for Stop the Bond Hutchison, we filed financial reports on December 31st, 2025. As of right now, Vote Yes for Hutch Kids have not filed any financial reports. And I think that's a very important component that's missing for us to be able to look at, what was spent by that campaign, because right now the district says we didn't pay for any videos. And there's no taglines on there's no paid for buys or any of that. And so who is this mystery donor out there that's funded all of these videos? We're still not sure. And so we're hoping, either the district or the Vote Yes for Hutch Kids becomes transparent with that funding. And then finally, this is from the Hutch Tribune. This is the most recent school bond meeting where they authorized the superintendent to spend over $28,000 just to find out why people didn't like the bond. And again, as a taxpayer, to me, it's like you're funding a campaign consultant. You're funding somebody that's saying this is why this didn't pass. And I think for me personally, I think anything that benefits the campaign needs to be funded by the campaign.
We probably need to wrap it up.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm wrapping up.
Okay. You're wrapped up?
I'm wrapped up.
Okay, she's wrapped up. Okay, like I said, committee, we're going to go ahead and have all the conferees speak. We have one more proponent, and then we'll open for questions. Thank you very much for your testimony. Our next conferee, you all know well. Oh. Okay, our next conferee, after picking himself up off the floor, is the Vice Chairman, Representative Paul Wagner. Welcome to the committee.
Yes, it's good to be here. Very good to be here. I think the prior conferee, explained a lot of what happened. I mean, again, I've only been actively involved in politics since about 2012, and it was originally on an issue campaign, and literally it was a case of me and eventually the people who supported my position, against the city council. And it was a whole case of you honestly wonder, when you're just a citizen coming up against the institutional apparatus of a city or of a school, you want a fair playing field. And much to Hutchinson's credit, back then, they actually were made a very clear effort, the city did, to be fair. They didn't try and fund anything on the campaign that eventually was a citywide campaign that we prevailed in. But when, Ms. Reed and the Stop the Bond people, who I, truth be told, definitely supported their campaign, it was just shocking to me that you would have these things of campaign, of just standard campaign advocacy, where there's a paid-for attribution and such as this, where there was no attributions. And so it was clear to us that, well, the taxpayers are funding this. And I will say, it became a major issue. I mean, this bond was shot down 3-1. You had in the most Democrat precincts, and it wasn't just sort of your, whatever Republican, however you would describe it, but in the most Democrat precincts in town, it went down 4-1. People were outraged by what the school district had done. I mean, not only did they not like it, it was a middle school or building a whole brand new middle school and a couple of other things, but there was a lot to dislike, I think, about it in just a factual basis. But the main thing, it truly became an issue about the public funding, and I would note this because for those of you who may think that this is somehow some attack on the school districts or on the cities, actually, if I was going to consult with any campaign who was trying to stop a bond, man, the city's spending money, the school district spending money, it is a real issue. You can run with that issue. It resonates with people. I mean, people do not want to see this. They already assume that the city or the school district should not be doing this. And the only reason they get away with it is because in a lot of cases, nobody's organized to oppose the bond. But when you had to stop the bond people, they were getting citizen kind of, I don't call them tattletales, but there were people, inside the district who were feeding them information because they were seeing stuff that was going on and they knew it wasn't right. And the gist of this bill, and Senator Shane, I actually was talking to him, I had never met the guy for Adam, and he made a comment about political campaigns. And I said, oh, we have a thing here in the House that we're doing. And he said, oh my gosh, we have this thing in the Senate. And honest to God, the revisers hadn't told me when I went to do this that there was some sort of parallel bill in the Senate. But again, the further thing I would submit about this is that the Wichita TV stations picked up on the Hutch because it became quite an issue, certainly on social media in Hutchinson, about what the school district was doing, and some of the local TV stations in Wichita picked up on it. And then we had some people from other cities, contact the Stop the Bond people and contact me. I think they referred them to me since I was the rep, and USD 308 is in my district. I don't literally live there because I have multiple school districts in my district. But it was a fact that, we had the folk, and I encourage you, it's a written-only testimony from a Miss Amber Douglas from Wellington, Kansas. But she had a very similar experience. And so I will close with this. I do want to highlight, and in my testimony, I was referred to Attorney General's opinion and the fact that there is no current law. There is the law about public entities and candidate campaigns, but there isn't anything with issue campaigns or, constitutional campaigns. There is the Attorney General's Opinion 93.33, which does have some information, which basically is districts do have a duty to educate the public, but there's clear statements in the Attorney General's opinion they're not supposed to advocate. But I think that clearly is not followed at all. In many ways, it's just skirted. And I think to clarify it is a good thing. And I will close with this is actually a quote from Amber Douglas, and I thought it was just very well said. She said, "When government uses public resources to advocate, it creates an uneven playing field where one side has taxpayer money, official branding, staff time, and access to students and families, yet the other side has nothing but personal time and personal money. That is not a fair election, nor is it a neutral government." And with that, I advocate for this bill because I think it restores fairness, and I think it's much needed in the state of Kansas. And I am open to any questions.
Okay, so committee, before I open for questions, is there anybody else wishing to speak as a proponent on this bill? Okay, seeing none, I'll open questions, and I think the ranking minority member is the one I saw first. I don't know which of you actually raised your hand first. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And these questions are for the Vice Chair because I've been waiting 4 years to ask. And
stay on the bill. Stay on the bill.
We'll do the best we can. All right. I understand the intent of the bill, and I understand that you give specific cases all related to school districts. Mm-hmm. My concern is there's no direct tie that has been made that school funding has been used in the advocating for the voting or the passing. There are assumptions, but do you have anything that has demonstrated that they have utilized those funds, school taxpayer dollars, or were they foundation money?
Yeah, no, I do. I'll defer to Ms. Reed.
Well, but okay, go ahead.
So your question is, yes, the school district has admitted to buying signs. They've paid over $4,000 for signs, over $10,000 for mailers.
And where did those funds come from?
They came from taxpayers.
They didn't come from the school district's foundation?
No.
We know this.
Taxpayer money was used for this, yes.
Okay.
They have admitted in a school board meeting that I wanted to share with you that they removed, once this got started, it's not online anymore. And I think
I would like to see that information, that direct, because we've been making some generalizations. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I will reach out to the superintendent of USD 308 and ask for them to put that back on social media.
Thank you. I have one more question for the vice chair. He thought he was out, but you can't call a friend this time, all right? I want your honest opinion as a statesman, not as someone that is just representing all Kansans. A superintendent is out in public. They do a town hall. All right, they're a paid employee. They can do this. They can respond to questions based on this bill. If they run a PowerPoint and use a laptop that's state-owned to just communicate and imply, is that a violation of this law?
No, and again, I'm sorry, I didn't bring, well, that's not other bill. If you look at it, most of the rub in what the bill had was it was about the advocacy. I mean, it was clearly the school district still has the duty and the ability to make the bond issue known, and have the details on it. But what we had seen was this push activity where they were sending out yard signs, and again, they admitted in the school meeting clearly, and they had been pinned down by a community columnist, Mr. Deming, in the Hutchinson News earlier, and again, she actually said it was from the money. She said, well, this is the money that we send out a newsletter every year, and so we just waited until it was before the bond, and we sent it out, and this is just like from our informational funding, whatever. But no, and I will say, there are parallel laws in a couple other states, actually a number of other states like Iowa, I think South Dakota. I mean, I actually had the revisers, kicking out some things, but there are things, and it probably might make a good amendment where it just makes clear that, the right for that, the free speech rights of them just to talk about it, in person. That's not really what the issue is that they would. And obviously, school board members, obviously you voted for the bond issue to go forward, so obviously you're in favor of it. But it's, are you spending the money? And again, I've been through enough campaigns of my own or for local issues that there's a certain way you do it. And darn if they weren't, I mean, again, you literally had 1,000 yard signs show up overnight in the schools, and it intimidated people. There were a lot of people who were afraid to put up vote no yard signs because, and that was the purpose of having, their campaign start like that.
And Mr. Vice Chair, with respect, I have no doubt of the story and what the situation, but it does seem like my question was specifically that it was, about PowerPoints. And it does seem like we can go back and tighten up this bill, especially addressing the definition of neutrality before we work it. And that's all I was trying to get at. So thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair.
Representative Mosley, then Representative Meyer, then Representative Simmons, I think, had her hand up too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my first question is for Miss Allison Reed. So I went on the Hutchinson's school board's website, and those wings that were on the button that you showed that you were triggered by, is that's just part of their logo. Is there any other instance that teachers have worn "I support Hutchinson children" or Hutch kids outside of this ballot initiative, or did it just pop up during this ballot initiative?
Well, first of all, I'm not triggered.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for misinterpreting your body language.
And second of all, I'm not aware. I mean, I have just been active during the bond campaign.
So you don't know if it was used beforehand?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if it was used.
Okay, we can go and look into that to see if that's just something that's a theme, because I know that we have that in Lawrence where we have I support Lawrence kids and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of a common thing in school districts. And then my next question is for my colleague. Thank you, our Representative Wagner. Did you have any financial stake in this ballot initiative? Did you donate money, or did you were you pushing it? Or you are using your title to give validity for you being an expert on caring about Hutchinson kids, or not caring about Hutchinson kids? Did you have any financial stake? Did you fund any of the Vote No program?
Once the campaign got going, I was happy to contribute.
You say you were a contributor?
Yeah.
Would you say you're a significant contributor or not significant contributor to this?
I think the campaign, the Vote No's, their total, they have a financial statement. I think they raised about $2,500.
Okay.
In an issue of transparency, because we have nothing to hide. We raised $2,340. We spent $1,774.80, and we got $2,531.41 in in-kind contribution.
Okay, well, awesome.
And so to beat a bond where the school district admitted to spending over $18,000 of taxpayer money, we were pretty proud of our efforts, 3-1.
And so you're 100% sure that none of this money came from a foundation? Just 18?
100%.
Okay, 100%.
100%. It was, Don Johnson admitted to it at a school board meeting.
Okay, and then I also want to say I'm sorry that you were not given access to the children so that you can talk to them about this program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep it to questions, and I would ask that all of the committee members be respectful of the conferees and keep your questions civil. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one is for Kelly? Yeah. Allison, I'm sorry. Okay. It's been a long day, y'all. Okay, so did you request, did you make a FOIA request or anything like that for the financials?
No.
Do you have any of the financial information, to back up your statements about?
From the school district?
Yeah.
All I have is what Don Johnson said at the school, or what she had her budget person respond to. I went to a school board meeting. I responded with my concerns. The board did not have anything to say at that time. The following meeting, then they addressed my concerns, and they gave dollar amounts for taxpayer money that was spent.
So, okay, so if that was their response to you, why when you're coming here to provide this testimony, and I really do want to see proof of this, that they did this? Why wouldn't that?
They have removed that video from the website.
I find that-
You are certainly welcome to contact the school district and get that information, but it has been removed. It was my intent to insert that information in my PowerPoint today.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Well, just to interject quickly, either one of you said that a newspaper actually reported in the newspaper the amount of money that they had spent?
I don't think it actually reported the amount of money. The article is called Hutchinson School Leaders Masked Numbers with 25-Year Plan. It was written by Dan Deming, who is a local columnist. He had visited with Superintendent Don Johnson after one of their meetings concerning the school bond, and she had talked about that they had spent taxpayer money on the mailers and taxpayer money on the yard signs.
You said that's in the Hutchinson News?
It is in the Hutchinson News, yes.
Okay, so it's printed, it's a matter of public record that occurred?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, there are no dollar amounts attached to that. The dollar amounts came later with the school board meeting.
Thank you. Representative Simmons and then Representative Berquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I ask a follow-up question of Ms. Reed? Why didn't you file a CORA or a FOIA request?
I just haven't yet. I mean, it's something that we've talked about as an organization to do that. It's just not something that we've gotten around to doing yet.
So for the purposes of testifying today, you did not prioritize bringing the proof of your claims?
Because there was proof already online that I thought I could easily access.
Well, I would have very much appreciated the hard copies of that. Additionally, I have a question for Representative Wagner.
Yes.
On October 8th, you did an interview with KWBW where you said that the district had done no wrong. Can you explain how your position has changed since October the 8th?
I'm sorry, what is your source for that? And
Three of your constituents who contacted me before this hearing.
And said what?
They said that on October the 8th, you did an interview with KWBW where you stated that you did not like the signs, but that the district had done no wrong at the time.
You know, I'm thinking the issue had come up on a radio interview where we were explaining about what the district had done, that the district had paid for the signs, and making that point very clearly. The question was whether had they just had they legally evaded the rules? And the thing was, there's not clearly any rules. And so in the sense, I think you're clearly having people who misunderstood, I would argue, frankly, purposely, misunderstood what I said, because my point I was making, I think, on the radio interview, it was a call-in. We have one of the local radio stations has a community call-in deal. But you know, what was the fact that again, it was clearly wrong, but as far as the legalities of it, because even at that point I was thinking, you know, I'm on elections committee, you know, we can do something about this. And so, but you know, you have been misinformed as far as my position October 8th.
Okay, I suppose I'll tell your constituents they're intentionally misunderstanding. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Berquist, and then we're going to move on to opposition testimony because I'm sure they'll help you guys out. All right, Representative Berquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a thought, this doesn't go deeper into evidence or conviction of a school board or of people that are against what happened. We're here to, in this committee, we're here to evaluate whether a certain possible law is of value to bring civility to our state, for the benefit of the state. And we're repeatedly digging into the details of a certain city, of a certain school district, of a certain group of people, rather than a certain good thing it might be good to improve the transparency, to improve the integrity of laws in amongst communities across the state. Try to make laws uniform that'll apply to everybody. And whether or not a certain group of people spend a certain amount of money to do a certain amount of things, we're talking about a subject that is, I hope I'm making some sense here. Simply put, that we're trying to create good law, not trying to convict somebody of a crime or to exonerate somebody of a crime. Trying to make better policy for the future. These things aren't going to change the things that have already happened. We're not going to go back and dig these people into the public eye again, which has probably already happened. But I just think it's good to be in this committee because we get to set policy that end up becoming law, and by the way, how are you, sir? I need to ask a question of the conferee.
Yeah, there you go. I was looking for the question.
Thank you. That's it. That's all I got.
I will interject on top of that implied question. Much in the same way a year ago, we took a state law that banned the use of foreign money to candidates and applied it to issue campaigns and constitutional deals or constitutional questions. This is the very same trajectory. And that was immediately what occurred to me also back when this thing was going on, that this is just like the foreign money. It's a categorical question. Obviously, public money should not be used for advocacy purposes, and we need to close what loophole there might be in state law. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Answered my question.
There you go. Whatever it was. All right, so committee, we're going to move on. I'm going to close proponent testimony. Is there anybody wishing to speak as neutral on this bill? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to opponent testimony. And my first, the first conferee I have listed is Jay Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jay Hall, the Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Kansas Association of Counties. I'll keep my comments brief. The issue that we have with this bill, I understand not wanting to have public money used in these types of ways. The issue we have is that it does not clearly define what the limitations are. That is really our issue here. And I say that because when you look at criminal law as an attorney, everything is defined. Everything is very clearly, very specifically defined in a criminal law. You'll notice in this bill that if you look down, it is a misdemeanor to commit an offense of this. But we don't have clearly defined things about what it is that you can or cannot do under this bill. And because we lack those things, we lack the clarity that is necessary to let people know when they are in these positions what they can and cannot do. For example, if I were a county commissioner, since I work for the counties, if I were a county commissioner, would it be impermissible for me to go to the Rotary Club on a Saturday evening and speak in favor of a sales tax that's going to be on the ballot under this language? Would that be permissible? If I am a county employee and my neighbor asks me on a Friday, hey, I see you're getting ready to go to work. What's going on with this provision that we have? Is it permissible for me to say that this is a good thing or a bad thing? That's unclear under this bill. And because those things are unclear, we need that level of clarification before we can move forward with this. With that, I will stand for questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you for your testimony. We're going to do all the opponent questions at the end. The next person I have listed is Mr. Jim Carlskent. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, committee, or almost good evening. I am Jim Carlskent. I represent the United School Administrators of Kansas. I'm a former legislator, and I'm a former superintendent. And I think, you know, the issue that we've heard so far, especially with proponent testimony, deals around school districts. I have, as a former superintendent, I have ran bond issues. And, you know, Ms. Reed brought up the fact, as well as the Representative Wagner, regarding what took place in Hutch. Senator Shane did as well with what took place in Lewisburg. Having ran bond issues before, I guess the thing that would be, if and I'm not saying you're not correct, but if you were, it surprises me that the architect for this project, always, when I've done this before, architects give you a strict list of what you as a school district can and cannot do. And, you know, and I was superintendent just 30 miles up the road in Holton. You know, when we ran bond issues, it was, you know, you had the foundation, and they took care of of financing most of the stuff that's been talked about, you know, with respect to the issues in Holton. So, you know, Representative Williams has a great comment as far as what needs to be. Taxpayers need to know what a bond issue is going to do. I think that, you know, should be included. I think Representative Berquist has a great comment too. Are we passing a law on one issue? You know, let's come up with some guidelines or some framework as far as what's best for the citizens of Kansas and also the school districts. You know, I'll repeat what, you know, Mr. Hall said, you know, that there's a lot of vagueness in this bill. It needs to be tightened up, and I would hate to see it become law. For example, let's say that as a superintendent, if I was at a site council meeting or a PTA meeting and somebody asked me about the bond issue, could I talk about it? You know, that's the vagueness of this bill. You know, restricting public use and public assets to include staff time, facilities, communication tools, you know, and the district expertise, those are somewhat vague in the sense as far as what can be done. But I do think there needs to be probably some guidelines with respect to putting out, you know, and another thing that, you know, and Representative Williams is certainly familiar with this, being involved in the education committees in her time here. You know, when a bond issue is requested, you got to go through the State Department of Education. I think when the bond issue is given the okay by KSDE, probably some guidelines should go out with them. Okay, this is what you can and can't do. You know, there are things that we can do without making a law and limiting things so much. So, you know, we respectfully urge the committee to oppose 2415, or at a minimum, significantly amend it to explicitly protect a school district's ability to provide neutral, factual, and information regarding school bond issues. You know, I don't want to take a great deal of your time because I know you've got a lot on your mind, and so I'll sit down and have questions, answer those. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opponent that I have listed is Sage Pormer. I'm sorry. I apologize. If you could state your name so I don't butcher it, I apologize.
Thank you, Chairman Proctor, members of the committee. My name is Sage Pormirza. You were really close on it. I'm with the League of Kansas Municipalities. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this. You know, one of the specific issues that, you know, we received calls on that I want to bring up just as kind of a real life example of this would be, you know, a sales tax referendum. You know, it's the job of the city to educate their constituents on what that's going to look like for them. You know, if that's telling them how much, you know, money they're going to be giving to this sales tax referendum, the average cost to each home for this, what that projected revenue looks like, what the revenue would go towards. And, you know, a lot of times cities are putting out mailers, flyers, something along the lines that provides that specific factual information with those numbers that are, you know, estimated there to support the city on their sales tax referendum there. And so that information there is neutral. Our concern here with this bill is that, you know, if that information looks good to someone and convinces them to vote yes, that it may not be deemed neutral if someone wants to challenge it and say, hey, they swayed me to vote this way, so I think they were advocating for a certain issue. Finally, the last point I want to make is there is Attorney General Opinion 93-125 that does state specifically in there, public funds may not be used to promote or advocate the position of a governing body on a matter which is before the electorate. However, this does not mean that public funds may not be expended to educate and inform the electorate. So as far as we're concerned and as far as we're educating our members, this is already what the law says. And as far as we've seen, our members are doing a good job of upholding that. So with that, we respectfully oppose House Bill 2451 as it's currently drafted.
So in the interest of time, before you step down, my first question is for you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak as an opponent on this bill? Okay, so I'm going to take chair's prerogative here. So the League of Municipalities, how is it funded?
We're funded through membership dues from our cities.
Okay, and the cities pay those dues how? I mean, how do they get the money to pay you those dues?
They pay it with taxpayer dollars.
So would you say that there's a place for not having taxpayer money used to come advocate at the Capitol in favor and against things that might lower property taxes or lower taxes?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you think there's a place for restrictions in law on taxpayer money being used to send people up here to oppose things that would lower our taxes?
Not really sure that, the property tax question, it's tough to, estimate what that's going to look like with the property tax changes. So I don't really want to comment on that. Our position is to, we serve our communities, we serve our cities who serve their communities, and they have to receive funding, so.
The source of my question is two consecutive hearings, the Kansas League of Municipalities has come up here and testified against measures that were directed at lowering taxes through moving the elections and through this measure that would give an even playing field to the vote no people on a ballot measure. You don't think that that's somewhat askew, that my taxpayer money is used to pay you to come here to lobby me not to lower taxes?
Respectfully, I don't have an answer for you at this
Okay,
time.
thank you. All right, any other questions for the opponents? Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, no, thank you very much for your testimony. You appreciate it. I have also read the Attorney General's opinion, the 125 that you referenced. Again, the opinion, it is just citing case law. It is just Attorney General's opinion, which an Attorney General's opinion doesn't have the force of law. I mean, it just probably gives you best practices, as far as if you're going to advise somebody. But if it's the case that by your basic thing is that, well, this is basically what the policy already really is in total, what would be the problem with having it in statute?
Sure, so to answer your question, and here I would kind of look at Senate Bill 314 in contrast to this bill here. So both bills contain the language that's on page 1 of your House Bill 2451, and then it's similar on Senate Bill 314. I would say our primary concerns are in page 2 of House Bill 2451. While we also have some concerns with just defining neutrality generally, we have concerns specifically with, directed mass communications that might just provide factual information. And so that's one of our primary issues with this version as opposed to Senate Bill 314.
Are there any other questions for this conferee? Okay, Representative Mosley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Permirza?
Permirza.
Okay, it's almost pronounced as it's spelled, so thank you for that. My question for you is, who generally, for bond initiatives that might increase, might be a sales tax, who's generally the people who bring that bond initiative up?
So like a sales tax referendum would be, voted on by the governing body, and then they submit it to the public for a vote.
So if it's voted on by the government body, you really are not a neutral party because you are the one that asked for this bond initiative, correct? So like if it's, let's say for instance in Lawrence, I believe there was a small sales tax that came up for, let's just say, whatever it was, say for schools, a small sales tax that came up, or for schools or whatever initiative they wanted to fund in our city. that would be the governing body, either the school board or the city commission. So once you ask for that bond initiative, you've probably done some research and you know, like you need to raise a certain amount of money in order to fund something. Is it possible for you to be a neutral party in that sales, if you're the one that's asking for it, essentially?
I would say that you can absolutely still provide neutral information,
Yeah.
factual information on it. Certainly, if you voted on it as a governing body member, maybe in your private time you have a certain opinion about it, but at the end of the day, it's submitted to the people to vote on, and you chose to do it as a board member, commission, governing body member. So you have your personal opinion, but you're asking the people to make the decision.
And as this bill stands, there's a lot of vagueness in this bill. There's a lot of things that have not clearly been defined in this bill. Would it be, as it stands right now, if a city was currently doing a bond initiative, let's say by mail-in ballots, and we've done that a couple of times in my community, would they know how to move forward on talking about the bond issue based off of the way this bill is written right now?
Based on the way the bill is written now, like I said, Attorney General opinion already kind of states that you're not supposed to advocate. With this law and the ambiguity there, I worry that there would be a chilling effect on anyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other questions for this conferee? Okay, Representative Brunk.
So thank you, and I understand the time constraints. And so we've heard a number of comments about not being able to define neutrality. Would you have some language that would help us make this bill more palatable to you?
I currently don't have any language on that, but we would be happy to work with you on that.
Okay, are there any other questions for this conferee? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for any of the opponents? Mr. Ranking Minority Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Hall, all the way in the corner, come on down. Always nice to ask questions to a fellow Ichabod.
Absolutely.
Yes, all right. So hypothetically, you talked about the broadness of the bills. And back in 2023, we issued funds for Republican and Democratic presidential primaries. By not including libertarians or other ideological parties, would that be a violation because it's so broad, the $4.5 million of taxpayers' dollars to advocate for a Republican or advocate for a Democrat? I'm just curious if that's a baseline to use.
I don't know that it would in this particular case because you wouldn't be advocating for a particular Republican or Democrat. So I think that because the language of the statute now specifically says for a specific candidate. So I think that I don't think that particular question would be an issue in this under this bill.
Okay, and then I'm just curious because my thought was going to the libertarians, those that don't have the funds to host any primary at all, so they would be citizens too. But that's okay, we can continue on. I'm trying to group the parameters down, and plus you're here and I like asking you questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Hall.
Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Jay. Thanks for being here. I have a question regarding this misdemeanor aspect of the legislation. Do you know if a city employee would be the one criminally held responsible?
So because this is a crime, it would have to be charged to an individual. And so it would be whoever authorized it or the individual that acted. So, which is why I asked the question, if you're a city employee or a county employee and somebody asks you and you say, yeah, I think this is a good idea, or no, I don't think this is a good idea, does that put you in criminal jeopardy of being charged with a misdemeanor because you said to your neighbor or somebody at the grocery store or whatever it might be that, yeah, I think this is a good idea, or no, I don't think this is a good idea?
May I ask one follow-up? Thank you. And do you know who would be responsible for those legal fees, if it would be the employee or potentially the city?
It would probably be the employee because it'd be their criminal matter. So I doubt the city or the county or whatever public entity would pay for that.
Do you suspect you may have trouble recruiting and retaining employees if they're fearful of criminal prosecution over something like language on neutrality that is not particularly specific or articulated?
I think there could be a chilling effect that people would be concerned about, certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
So you gave two examples, and that was two conferees ago, so forgive me if I don't get it exactly correct, but the example of the superintendent at a town hall being asked if he likes or doesn't like it and should vote or shouldn't vote, and then the other example, I think it was somebody in their driveway on the way to work being asked. Do you think that that superintendent who is doing a town hall and is asked, how should I vote on this bond issue, should be allowed to say, yeah, you should vote yes?
Well, I think if you're a county commissioner or a school board member or whatever you might be, and you are at an event and they ask you, do you support this sales tax or do you support this bond issue, you should be able to say, yeah, I support it, or no, I don't, and here's my reasons why. You should be able to express that reasoning because the voters want to know. I mean, that's part of having an informed electorate. If you can't, as a voter, I mean, in the same way that if somebody asks you when you go home and have a legislative coffee, if somebody asks you, do you support this particular piece of legislation that's coming up, or do you not support this particular piece of legislation coming up, you're not going to tell them, well, the legislation does this, does that, and not tell them how you feel about it. In the same way, a local official should be able to speak on that.
So what maybe I wasn't clear. What I'm talking about is a superintendent or a county manager or a city manager who's in an official capacity at a town hall. Should they be allowed to say, yeah, you should vote yes, because this is the better, this is good for the kids or good for the city or whatever? Should they be allowed to advocate in that setting, not in their driveway?
So it really depends, because here's the thing. Are they there in an official capacity? Like, are they there at are they there at an official board meeting? Or is this just a community meeting where community members are there and they say, hey, I know you are the city administrator, or you are the county administrator, or you're the county manager or whatever. Those are two different circumstances. And so if I am there at a community meeting and it's not the county board meeting where the county commission is there and the county commissioner or the county administrator stands up and says, I think everybody that's here should vote for the sales tax on November 3rd or whatever, I don't know that that's appropriate. But if they are at a community meeting and somebody says, hey, you're the county administrator, what do you think? What are the reasons why somebody would vote yes for the county sales tax? I think they should be able to speak on that, because again, people in our communities ask our local leaders what's going on with these things, what they think about these things, why they should support or not support the things that are being proposed on their ballots. I know we've got a couple of people that were in local government that know that they received those kinds of questions. And particularly for people that are elected, I mean, if you're a county commissioner, for example, you don't stop being a county commissioner because you're at the grocery store or a community meeting. People will come up and they will ask you these questions, and they will want to know, should I support this? What do you think? What's going on with this particular issue?
We have a situation in Leavenworth right now where an individual in a meeting endorsed his replacement candidate, and there's serious concern that he's violated the law by using that public meeting to do that. I think that I've heard how vague this bill is, but I think there's a pretty bright line. If you're spending public money, if it's an official school or county or city function, you paid money to have that function. You can't advocate in that setting. But Representative James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hall, you know I was a county commissioner. Obviously, we've talked several times, and I would say that for superintendents or for county commissioners, if a bond comes up, it came up for a reason, right? And most likely, it was the support of the commission based on whatever happened. A committee formed, a school was going to close, and the superintendent appointed a committee and the recommendation, and they asked for a new school or to close the school down. So, but what I get out of this bill is not that. If you're out there using tax dollars for taxpayers' money, is that right? You think it's right to $40, $50, $60,000 on a campaign for bigger schools to do that?
So my issue is, my two issues are the ambiguity of the thing. That's one issue. The other issue really is, what is the actual limitation for somebody being able to speak? I have no issue, and you'll see in my testimony, I mentioned, I don't have issue with saying you can't use the public goods for these sorts of purposes. So if you say, hey, you can't use the county copier to run off these flyers, I have no problem with that. That's perfectly fine. But to say, hey, also, when you are out on the weekend and people know that you work for the county and they ask you about this, to say that you then can't speak on it and share your opinion would, in my opinion, be a violation of your First Amendment rights.
Right, and I would say that leniency that's in this bill right here, wouldn't that be up to the county attorneys or district attorneys to determine, to do investigation to find out if they did?
Certainly, but I think the other side of that is, do you as an employee want to risk like getting a misdemeanor on your record because of something you said at a meeting?
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, so we're at 5 o'clock. Representative Simmons.
Beat you to it, Representative Meyer. Thanks for being here, going into the evening with us, Mr. Hall. Would you agree that there's already an accountability mechanism built in through the election of school board members?
Well, I think there's accountability in a couple of ways, and I think we've already heard of both of those ways. One, you have the election of the board members themselves, and then two, the bond issue itself. People are going to vote. I mean, they're going to get the information. They're going to vote how they vote. You can't make them vote one way or another. Maybe that vote will pass. Maybe it'll fail. That's really up to the people. I mean, I talk to counties all the time about putting sales taxes on the ballot. And once they put it on the ballot, I mean, from our perspective as KC, we can get it on the ballot and then it's up to the people. Whatever the people want to do, if they want that sales tax to pass, if they don't want that sales tax to pass, that is up to them. It's not really up to me to determine whether a sales tax in, say, Labette County, who's working on sales tax this year, whether or not that passes is not up to me because I don't live in Labette County. That's for the people of Labette County to decide.
Thank you. I was thinking about Representative James' question, and I thought, yeah, if someone doesn't like the decisions that their school board members are making as far as bonds and spending, I believe they have every opportunity to run against them and win and change that. Thank you.
Okay, past 5 o'clock, Representative Meyer. Okay, all right, you don't want to be that person. All right, are there any other questions that people will not be able to go home and sleep well for the weekend if they don't ask? Oh, well. Okay. All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you to all the conferees. I'm going to close the hearing on House Bill 2451. If there anything for the good of the order? Okay, seeing none.